A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi, because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause. And MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
All right, we're back with Ken and Mike and Cindy.
Hello.
From My Uncle's Escaped Alcatraz. And there's so many things happening, guys. All our listeners, like behind the scenes, and when we're ready to tell you all that stuff's happening, it's all coming together. Everything that we've been working towards, just getting this podcast out, getting this story, getting Ken and Mike's book out to everybody. There's so much good stuff, Alcatraz good stuff happening, and we'll have some announcements hopefully in the next couple weeks, but just keep your fingers crossed. But things are moving, and we're real excited about it. And so just stay tuned. And CrimeCon is happening this week. We've been threatening to go there for a while, but we're hoping that we have a friend, Cheryl McCollum, who's the one who introduced us to Ken and Mike, and she's going to be down there. And so hopefully we'll be down there next year with you guys. So yeah, and which is cool now is that now they're airing it live. So I guess Fox has picked it up. So next year it'll probably be again. So big things happening for Alcatraz and the podcast and everything. So, but today we're going to talk about a lot of the letters that the brothers wrote to the family members, to each other, Alfred writing it to, John and Clarence, and a bunch of letters, stuff that, some of them, most of them are in the book, but we haven't really kind of gone over them. We just talked about them communicating. We're going to kind of dissect them and share the contents of these letters and talk about it, because I thought it was really interesting, because I've only read a few of them, because we get so focused on the escape and how they made it to Brazil and all like that. But it also kind of defines who their characters were too, as far as how they really tried to stay connected to their family, even behind bars. And, even if it was mundane stuff that they were talking about, they always tried to stay connected. And to me, that tells, and when we're reading the book, it tells you what kind of people they were, and, having met your mom, Ken, in person, and, now I've known you for over a year now. I mean, it's just like start getting to get the idea of what the Anglin family was really all about. So hopefully this kind of illustrates for our listeners and viewers to find out. So who wants to start first with their letters?
I could start. One of the things that really kind of captivated my attention on these letters, and we have quite a few letters, mainly though just from where John and Clarence or Alfred wrote to their mom. Like I said, most of the letters that John and Clarence had in Alcatraz, we assume, according to Art, that the FBI or the U.S. Marshals still have those. But, when you listen to like Uncle Man, and he talks about how that the brothers would communicate in code, and then you read in the FBI files where when they interview Alfred's cellmate in Atlanta, he even talks about how that the brothers, John and Clarence, prior to the escape, wrote Alfred and told him that they were planning an escape from Alcatraz, which just blows your mind because, somehow in code, they were able to communicate this to Alfred, get around any guard that was reading it. And they were able to communicate even though they were not in physical contact with each other. And so I started going back through some of the letters, and I happened to have one from Alfred. He was writing home to his mom, and this was in May of 1963. And this was after the escape. But one of the things that really kind of caught my mind in here was he was talking about his parole. A lot of times I have mentioned how that Alfred was up for a parole hearing in February of the year that he got killed, which was 1964. So in May of 1963, he was still in Atlanta. He hadn't made it to Kilby Prison yet. But he did write home, and he this is, what he said. He said, part of what he said, I thought that the paintings that John and Clarence painted were very good. Mom had taken pictures of them and sent them to me. I guess by now everyone knows that I was denied parole, but I will be considered again next February, and I'm really hoping to make it home. So in this one letter, he backs up what we had been saying all along, was that he had been turned down for parole in Atlanta, but that he was up for a parole hearing in February of 1964. So this notion that I've, mentioned before, why in the world would Alfred try an escape on January the 11th, 1964, when he was possibly going to be paroled in February of 1964?
A month later.
Makes no sense.
I could understand if you didn't make your parole again, then do the escape. But why would you even attempt something like that? I mean, the whole 5 years that he's in Atlanta, he doesn't try to escape one time. He keeps his nose clean. He participates in the drug program trial that they're doing. This is what reduced his federal sentence and allowed him to choose where he wanted to go. He gets to Kilby Prison. He's a trustee. So why would you throw all of that out the window to try and go do an escape when you could have at least waited another couple of weeks and possibly have made parole?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It goes against common sense, and it doesn't make sense at all. No. Especially, was that the MK Ultra program?
That was, yeah. Well, we assume that it is the MK Ultra CI. That was the drug program that was being run in Atlanta at that time. It was being actually run in multiple prisons. Mm-hmm. Atlanta was just one of the locations. It is the same program that Whitey Bulger talks about. He was involved in this. So was Alfred. That's actually how he received a 15-year federal prison sentence during his federal trial. Him and Clarence both did, and that was because Alfred had many escapes up under his belt. And prior to the bank robbery, he had been on the run for a little over 5 years from a Florida state prison. So the judge, when he sentenced him for the federal time, John got 10 years and Clarence and Alfred got 15 because they were previously on the run from another escape. So, but he was able to reduce that down to 5 years and was able to, transfer to a state prison and was really up for a parole hearing and could have actually walked out the door.
Yeah. Well, they say you usually never get paroled on the first try.
Right.
It usually takes a few times, like once or twice or three times. So the first time, that's not surprising he didn't get it on the first time.
Yeah, but when he gets to Kilby and he's a model prisoner, undoubtedly when he came from Atlanta to automatically kind of walk into a brand new prison and you're made a trustee right off the bat, that probably carried some weight from the warden that because in that letter also too, he talked about that the warden in Atlanta was helping him with his case. And I think he was helping him write the letters and do research. And so I can probably see this warden writing a very good letter to the warden at Kilby. And it's probably what got him into the trustee status.
And what year is this? And what year is this, Ken?
So he gets to Kilby in October of 1963.
Okay.
So,
So it's after the escape. It's after the escape.
Yeah, this is well after the escape. So
that's really interesting that you say that. And if you have like the warden was helping him,
yes,
knowing that his brothers have escaped from the unescapable Alcatraz, and that he's still getting some assistance. Is that suspicious at all? You think?
To me, I kind of think it is because when you think about he became friends with a warden out at Atlanta. This is the same warden that ships Whitey Bulger to Alcatraz just a couple of years before that because he refused to cooperate with the warden. And undoubtedly, actually probably at 63, now that I'm kind of thinking about it, Whitey Bulger is probably almost back in Atlanta at that time. So he was in Atlanta, he goes to Alcatraz, he's sent back to Atlanta. So, I mean, for this warden to be helping Alfred, a lot of this stuff really doesn't kind of make sense. Like I've said before, even if you go to a brand new prison, I'm assuming as a prisoner, that you don't walk in the door and you're just automatically made a trustee.
Yeah.
I mean, you're pretty much given, the freedom to walk around and do stuff that other prisoners have to earn. And you just walk in the door and all of a sudden you have it.
Yeah.
So that's a very strange part of the story that I've never really kind of understood.
To me, what it sounds like is he wanted to keep him close.
Yeah.
I think so too. I think all of the prisoners, both prisons wanted to keep him wanted to keep him very close and follow and know what he's doing, because I believe that he knew where they were at.
Yeah. And keeping him a trustee also maybe gives him the false sense of, and confidence that maybe he can use that to try to escape. It's almost like they're trying to bait him. All right, here's all these privileges. Here's a trustee, because sometimes some of those trustees can be working outside the prison. Sometimes, right. Like we live near LA County Jail. There's like that people don't know this, and it's a beautiful area, but like just over the hill, probably about 6-7 miles, there's a supermax LA County Jail that has like 6,000 of the craziest inmates in LA County all there, but they also have lower security facilities there, and they have a lot of trustees, and you see them working out there, and every once in a while they'll jump and they'll walk. They'll walk because they can get right onto the freeway and they can hitchhike and get in. If they get into a truck, forget it. They're gone in, a half hour.
Well, with some of the events that I know that occurred at Kilby, like right after he's there, he's only there maybe, I don't know, a week or so, because Uncle Man comes to visit him in the very first part of November. And you remember Steve Anglin, the oldest son of Uncle Man, he even talks about them going to visit Alfred and how they, it wasn't like they were visiting through a screen or a plastic, mirror or glass. I mean, they were physically in contact with each other, and they got up and went to the restroom together. I mean, it just shows you.
Lost Ken.
We lost Ken.
What happened?
Okay. So we had a little bit of a technical snafu over in Florida. We thought it was a hurricane. We thought it was a storm. I think maybe somebody just walked around and unplugged his server or whatever it was. But we're back and not sure where we left off, but we were talking about Alfred, and we were talking about the possibility that why the warden was being so nice to him in Atlanta and keeping him close and helping him with his case. And then he went to Kilby, and then all of a sudden he walks in the door and he becomes a trustee, which is not always the case in a new prison. And it was like he went from a federal to a state, correct?
Yeah, and according to one of the letters that Clarence wrote his mom, this was after before the escape, but it was before Alfred was even transferred. Alfred had already gotten the word that he was going to be allowed to transfer to another prison. And Clarence was very hopeful that he would go to some state prison in Florida. And he, for whatever reason, he chose to go to Alabama. And, like I said, he walks in the door. He's made a trustee. We know this from Uncle Man and Steve. They excused themselves when they were there meeting with Alfred in the early November of 1963. They go to the bathroom. We've told the story how Alfred then tells his brother that he had contact with John and Clarence, where they were at, and that he planned to go join them. And then, of course, my mom, my dad, me and my sister, we show up in December around Christmas of 63. Alfred is still he's walking around. He's like out in this courtyard. He's not like a prisoner that would be locked down. And, he tells my mom and dad the same thing, he had contact, that he's got a parole hearing coming up, and that if he makes it, he's going to go join his brothers. So, all of this just kind of doesn't make sense that just a few weeks later, he decides, I'm going to do an escape, and he gets killed, and that pretty much ends his life.
Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
Does not make any sense to me.
Well, it doesn't make sense because that's not what really happened, as we've discovered.
I don't know if we'll ever really truly get the answer for that. It's been such a long time, and it's just a crazy thing. And I know I've told people this before. I contacted the state of Alabama several times, trying to get information about Alfred and John and Clarence, and there is no record whatsoever in their database or in their files that they've been able to look that there was ever a warrant or what they call a hold for them for prison. John and Clarence, if they were to appear today and would be freed on federal charges, there are no state charges out there pending on them.
Yeah.
The state of Alabama either deleted it or I can't explain it.
Records have a way of disappearing or getting destroyed.
Honestly, I've been working on a case that was in Los Angeles, and
from 2002.
I can't believe the letter I got back from the Superior Court telling me that all the archives from before 2012 are gone for this case.
On a murder case.
And it was like appealed, and it was like an appeal, like lots of appeals on this case. And it's just very bizarre. I mean, the lawyer told me, yeah, they do have a record destroying system, but they're supposed to make a digital copy of it.
Right.
Especially with a case like Alfred, and he was connected to two of the most wanted men in the world. Like, I can't imagine that they don't have the documents.
Well, and I go back to also, if his death had nothing to do with the escape from Alcatraz or related in any way, why is it in the FBI files?
Well, sure.
Why did they detail his death? You can read every single piece of what happened the night that he got killed. And if it has nothing to do with the Alcatraz escape and his knowing where his brothers were at, and that's the reason why they go back and talk to his cellmate. Mm-hmm. Why is it in the FBI files for escape from Alcatraz?
Yeah.
Well, it's clear that they didn't want anyone to know where the brothers were. That was a big secret, and they wanted to keep it a secret. And if another person went down there, then maybe someone else knew. And then before you know it, more people know. There's always this thing about anything more than 2 people, there's going to be 10 people. So it seems to me that that's what their intention was, to just shut him down so he could not go meet your uncles.
It was one of two. It was either they wanted to keep him quiet, or they were really hoping that they could make it to the point, his life so miserable that he would want to leave, and then they wanted to follow him and see where he went. And of course, then he gets killed, or either he gets killed during their interrogation process, and it's a cover up. I mean, either way, it's just so hard to believe that he would take that chance. I can't imagine you would go to any prison today and ask any prisoner that was up for a parole hearing in a couple of weeks, would you take the chance if you had the opportunity to escape?
No, absolutely not. And to be honest, we worked with a lot of prisoners who were coming up for parole, and they were very cautious about the things they talked about on the phone. They were very cautious on who they spoke to. They were very cautious about all their actions in the days leading up to their parole hearing, because they knew any little thing could trigger them to be denied. So I don't believe that he would have tried to escape that short of a period before his parole hearing. It makes absolutely no sense. And I think it goes back to the fact that he knew where your uncles were.
Plus the way they say he tried to escape. It just seemed, with everything that his brothers had done in their escape, it just seemed completely haphazard and desperate.
Yes.
It's just I'm going to escape out of here. What were you going to say, Mike?
Now, months and months ago, we had on the show, I think it was a recording, if I remember correctly, the guy that he escaped with. He's still alive, as last we heard. And he insists that they tried to escape together, that Alfred got electrocuted going out the window, but that he was still alive. He hadn't died. And that when it was discovered, because it according to the FBI report, when you touch the wire, it triggered there's a box or a panel that it triggered, and the guards went upstairs to where they were trying to escape and found him. I can't remember if he was still in the window or if he'd come out of the window.
One of the FBI files, he was still in the window.
Well, that's what the FBI file said, but this guy told it a little bit different. I think he had come out of the window, and that the guards came up, caught him, and the other guy's whisked away, and then he's very quickly sent to another prison. He's gone. And then Alfred's suddenly dead. But he insisted that Alfred was still alive when he saw him last before the guards took him away. And then suddenly he's dead. So, and after all these years, I mean, he's probably in his 80s, getting close to 90s at this point. And he's still insisting that, yes. Oh, and the reason that he gave, because I think one of the questions was, well, why did Alfred try to get out when he was so close to the parole, was that he was told by, it was either the guards or the FBI. I think it was the FBI, because they came and interrogated him, according to this other inmate, that they came in many times, actually. And of course, in the FBI report, there's no record of it whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Only after he had died is he inserted into the report. But according to this guy, he was talked to regularly or often. And they had told him that he has no chance of getting out. And so Alfred, in desperation, that's why he left. That was the reasoning.
Well, that would make sense if they're telling him one thing. It's even though the prison's saying one thing, and then the FBI said, "Listen, you're never going to get out of here." That would make it. But I don't think, number one, that Alfred, and this is just me speculating here, is that I don't think he would be so haphazard as that. unless there was a time limit saying, listen, something's going to happen to you at certain period, because it just seems like a desperate attempt. And he's escaped from other places before. Did he ever make like a desperate attempt like this? It seems completely not well thought out. And because he was on the run for some things, so he actually made it out for some things, correct?
Yeah, I mean he had escaped. Oh my gosh, probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times in the past from state prisons. Like I said, when the bank robbery occurred and they get caught, he had been on the run for over 5 years. So, I mean, he knew how to escape, or he had the ability to do it. But he was only at Kilby from the late October 1963, and he gets killed in January of 1964. So he's only there maybe 2-3 months at the most. And in those 3 months, he's able, according to what was found, that they said they found with him was, and this was interesting too, he had everything in a pouch that he had constructed, a waterproof pouch, very similar to what John and Clarence.
A raincoat, maybe? Another raincoat?
They never said what the pouch was made out of. All they said was it was a waterproof pouch, and inside of it, he had an ID. He had homemade jumper cables to steal a car. And I don't remember if he had anything else in there. But, if you're trying to escape, why would you have these kind of items? And how did you get them in such a short period of time? I mean, who would you know in the prison that would risk, giving you a fake ID, and you've only been there for 2 months? Well,
I mean, it's so shocking. I mean, I've done a lot of prison documentaries, and like the first time I walked into one, I was shocked. I'm like, you're walking through the cell area, and I'm like, I'm smelling weed, I'm smelling all this other stuff, and like going, where is it? And like, I'm with the guards and the correctional officers, and they go, they can pretty much get what they want in here.
But I mean, I can understand today because they have such lax
cell phones and access of.
But we're talking 1963, and we're talking in the deep South in Alabama. Where they would, the guards would take prisoners and strap them into the electric chair and play around with them just to make them talk. Yeah. So, I mean, there were no cell phones back then. There were no, my mom said when she brought Alfred Christmas dinner, they went through it, looking for contraband that might be coming into the prison. So, I mean, I know that they probably had the ability to do things like that.
Yeah, it's all motivation and money. I mean, these correctional guards back then didn't get paid a lot. They don't get paid a lot now. No. So it's like, that's usually the gateway of.
But I think back then it would have been harder than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely have been a little hard. And what was so, also too was, according to, we have the letter. My grandmother got a letter from him the week after we went to visit him, and it's written on a colored piece of paper, a yellow piece of paper. Which, this is even recorded in the FBI files that the mother, they said, Rachel was concerned because of this colored piece of paper, which indicated that Alfred was in trouble. Which is an interesting thing. All of the letters that I got from Whitey Bulger, the 17, only had one that was in a colored piece of paper. All the other ones are white. But
and what order was it? With the one that was colored, was it randomly amongst them, or was it like the last letter? Or
it was like the second letter.
Okay.
And their letter was in, and I know that he always stayed in and out of trouble. They were always accusing him of doing something. I remember he telling me one time that they would, lock him down because they thought he was doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, or had contraband or whatever. So, I mean, it does make sense because, I mean, even with my correspondence with him, there was a time when he was in trouble, and his letters, the paper that he wrote on was different than what he normally wrote on.
Yeah.
So that undoubtedly still happens today. And so it was a concerning for my grandmother, which brings to the point was, were they trying to interrogate him? Were they trying to threaten him? Were they trying to make it to the point where they wanted him to leave, because they wanted to follow him? They wanted to make it to the point that he felt like he had no choice than to leave.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So, and I can get that, that he would probably say, if I don't leave now, I'm going to be dead, So I don't know. It's interesting. Mike, do you have a letter you want to share before I bring in this other piece?
Sure. This was a letter that John wrote in February of 1960 when he was at Leavenworth. So this was approximately 2 years after they were arrested and convicted for the robbery. That was in 58. And in the letter, you really get a sense of kind of what he's thinking and feeling about Helen. Because, after the robbery, they come back. He picks up Helen. Clarence gets Ruth, the sister, and Alfred brings his wife, Jeanette. And then they go up to Ohio to be where Helen and Ruth's father is. And they hide out there for a few days. And she calls Jim, her husband, Helen does, and tells him where they are. And then he calls the FBI and they get arrested the next day.
Helen.
Always goes back to Helen.
So 2 years later, this is what he writes. He says, Helen is still on my mailing list and can write anytime she wants to. It would be nice to hear from her. I haven't wrote her in so long. She might not want to hear from me now. I stopped writing to her for her own good. I would marry her today if I was free and not to ask any questions, but it's not that way, so I don't want her to try and string me along. I'm loaded with time and there's no room for it for any woman. If I was free, you would have a new daughter-in-law, and this is to his mother, you'd have a daughter-in-law. Whether any of the others liked it or not, you probably won't understand this, but she is my little Cinderella, and you don't have to tell her this, because I think she already knows.
$1 million, free to play. You just need to survive. It's the Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Pick one team to win each week. Get it right, move on. Get it wrong, you're out. The last fan standing take home a guaranteed $1 million cash prize. And for every player who joins, we add $1 to the pot, up to $10 million. The Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Play free on the Fanatics app. App access open to all. Must be 21 plus and joined by 9/8 to play. No purchase necessary, U.S. only, void where prohibited. Subject to complete terms. See fanatics.com/game rules.
So, you can see that even 2 years later, he's still
he's
very strong feelings for her. He's trying to spare her, look, you're just going to have to give up on me. I'm not going to write her anymore because I'm going to be in jail for a long time, prison for a long time. And he's just trying to free her from a life of pain and waiting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's heartbreaking for him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to basically kind of cut her loose, knowing that he's still very much in love with her. That's tough,
right? Because he was, he brought her, into this crime, not unknowingly. She didn't know what he had done, and eventually, when all six of them are arrested, all six of them are arrested the next day. They're all brought into the courthouse, and then it was determined, actually the seventh, because Helen's father was also arrested too, because he's, complicit supposedly in this, and they didn't know anything.
Those photos of that day, in the hotel room where I think it's John is sitting on the edge of the bed there, and he looks completely dejected, and everybody's else behind him.
Well, that was Alfred he's sitting on a.
Is that Alfred?
Yeah, and behind him is Jeanette, just kind of looking at him when the photographer took the picture.
And
there's a picture of them all together in front of the courthouse.
Yeah,
that the press that took. They're all, they're in handcuffs, kind of being led in to the courthouse. But, they were eventually exonerated. They were eventually released. They were not charged with any crimes or had to go to any court hearings or anything, because they didn't know anything. They knew that something had happened, but they didn't know what had happened, and they never told them until after they get arrested. Then they knew.
Oof. What a shock.
John wanted to bring her with him. And then wherever they were going to end up, whether it be in LA, Tijuana, somewhere else, he wanted to bring her. And it's like, you're going to be with me now. And Jim is no longer in the picture. And she went. So she wanted to be with him, basically life on the run.
So this letter that I wanted to share with you here, this next one, this was an interesting letter to me because Alfred is writing Clarence and he is in Leavenworth. And it's dated October the 5th, 1960. So this was right after they tried to escape out of Leavenworth. John is
that in the bakery's box? Is that in the bakery?
Alcatraz yet, but he's about to go to Alcatraz. I mean, if he's not on the train on the way out there, he's just days away. But Alfred writes this to Clarence, and he makes a very interesting statement in it. He said, there is something I would like to write and tell you about, but it isn't that important, and I will tell you later in the next letter. I told John that we had some help, but I didn't tell him who it was, and I'm sure he will be glad to hear. I don't know what he was referring to, other than John had already been assigned to Alcatraz at this point. He just hadn't gotten there yet. So, Clarence, Alfred is writing Clarence and telling him about that there is someone who wants to help them. Now, I don't know who this someone was. Clearly, it wasn't, someone that it wasn't like a lawyer. He never said he never said the person's name. All he said was, I'm going to tell you in another letter. And so he's kind of prepping Clarence for something. I mean, he could have told it then. And I think this might be part of the key code that they use to each other. They would prep someone, they would prep him for the next letter. So it'd be kind of like me writing you and saying, hey, I'm going to tell you about Mickey Cohen, but rather than saying Mickey Cohen's name, I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you about something in the next letter. And maybe in the next letter, I might give you part of the name, and the next letter, the rest of the name. But it's almost kind of like he was letting them know that and I'm not saying it was Mickey Cohen. I'm just saying there was someone that that Alfred knew was going to help them, and he was going to let them know about it.
Wow. And that's when he was in Atlanta?
Yeah, so he was still in Atlanta.
Was Whitey in Atlanta at the time? Wasn't Whitey in Atlanta too?
Whitey was already in Alcatraz.
Okay.
He was in Atlanta prior to going to Alcatraz with Alfred. So there was a connection there between Whitey Bulger and Alfred before Whitey is sent to Atlanta. They were in the same prison together.
And also Frank Morris was there too.
Yes.
Oh.
And he actually served time with Frank Morris in another prison.
So maybe that's the guy. Maybe it's Frank.
I don't know. Very, very interesting.
It's a very loaded thing to put into a letter that's going to another, from inmate to inmate. You would think that somebody, but because I would be going through, if I was the prison, if they're really looking into these, they really read them in detail. Never know how much intel is going on, and who's going over these letters.
Yes.
Whether they're just other prisons.
Rob, you're going to like this next one.
Okay.
This one is a letter that Clarence writes to John, and this is January the 6th, 1961. So John is already in Alcatraz. Clarence is still at this time in Leavenworth, but he actually gets to Alcatraz January the 11th. So this is he's 5 days. No. Yeah, he's 5 days away from being in Alcatraz himself. And he writes this letter to John. And what really caught my attention was at the very end of it. He said, and then he's referring to Al. He says Al, he's talking about Alfred. Alfred wrote me that Ruth had an operation and that Helen had a minor one and might have to have a major one before she is well. But this is the first time I've ever read a letter where someone mentions Ruth. Mm-hmm. Always been Helen. So undoubtedly they, he's telling Clarence about Ruth because we knew that Clarence and Ruth were supposedly dating the same time that John and Helen were dating. So this is the only letter I've ever seen of all the ones that we had where Ruth is ever mentioned.
And for our listeners, if you remember, Ruth was the one who signed the postcard.
Yes, she was. I don't know, how strange that this is, but like I said, my mom and the rest of the family didn't even really know Ruth.
Yeah.
I mean, they knew Helen, they knew, the sister, the older sister, but they didn't really know Ruth. Clarence never really talked about her that much, according to my mom.
Was the operation like a code or euphemism for something else? Them both having some sort of medical? I don't know.
My mom said that she never knew that Helen or Ruth was ever sick. I asked her about it. The only thing that the family knew about and has been in letters before was that John talked about Helen having a son, his son, early on, after
I want to jump in because I have that letter, and that was one of the letters I wanted to read. So since you gave me
what letter is this one?
So this was written in November 1958, and this is Clarence. He's at Leavenworth at this point, and he's writing to his mother, and he says, "Dear Mom, I received your letter and was glad to hear everybody was fine. As for myself, I am getting along all right. I received a letter from John last night. He had a lot to say and just wrote both sides of the paper full. I did not know Helen's Johnny was in the hospital. John wrote me in his letter about it. It's bad. And Helen, I hope he gets well. Oh, and tell Helen, I hope he gets well. Tell him I'm going to bite his thumb if he doesn't get well. One time I was playing with him and he was putting his thumb in my mouth and snatching it back. So once he forgot to take his thumb and I bit it." So this was when John was still writing to Helen. John was aware of Johnny, Helen's son. And this is in 1958. And Clarence references being with Johnny before he was arrested in Alabama earlier in 58. This was January 58 was the robbery, and this is November, so it's 10 months later. But before the robbery, he makes reference to playing, with his thumb with the baby. So the baby's, could be like a year and a half old at this point, or maybe a little bit older. So evidently the baby was sick. He was hospitalized. He says, "I hope he gets well." But it's interesting that Helen names this baby Johnny.
His actual name is John.
Yeah, right. His name.
They call him Johnny, but his name is John.
But she had the baby while she was still married to her previous husband.
Yes. And
So
this was when John and her were having the affair.
Exactly. So they were doing the wild thing while she was married.
Yes.
So theoretically, Johnny could be.
I can almost probably guarantee you that if you were to take his DNA, he would come back as an Anglin.
Mm. Well, and it's also interesting that Jim, her husband, allowed Helen to name him John. Mm-hmm. You would think because, Jim knew about John's affections. He was well aware of it. That's the reason that, she was shipped off to be with the father from Ruskin, because they didn't want her to mix with John. And then she gets married to Jim. They come back to Ruskin, and then John start seeing Helen again. And it was sort of this big scandal in this little town of him going around with a married woman. So everybody knew what was going on. And yet he still allowed her to name the child John. So either way, even if it is Jim's child, it's still a slap in the face.
Yeah,
it's not good.
It's pretty bold.
And John is still alive today. I have spoken to him. He pretty much is pretty adamant that his father is Jim, but I don't know if he really knows the truth. I actually have a picture of John when he was with Helen right before when she was in a nursing home, and I mean she definitely was very old, but I mean he is around, and I would definitely reach out to him if we ever thought we wanted to compare DNA in the future.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yes.
That's a crazy story.
But it just
this is the soap opera within Alcatraz.
Yes.
Well, they were real people who did real things.
Exactly.
Some of them good, some of them not so good. This guy's running around with a married woman. He still loved her, and she was in a loveless marriage with Jim, and he let her, reluctantly he let her go with John because there was sort of a confrontation. After they robbed the bank, he goes to the house and Jim's there, and John's saying, "I'm taking her with me," and he lets it happen. He doesn't prevent him. So
why do you think that's the case? Was he just afraid of John?
John was a pretty strapping young man.
I know, they were both studs.
You've seen pictures from behind, and I mean, he looks like broad shoulder and very.
Well, doesn't John give Jim some money, some little payoff money?
He offers Jim $1,000 to keep quiet because Jim had pretty much figured out, that they had robbed the bank, and John offered him cash to stay quiet, and
he took
like
the money.
Mike said, Helen reaches back out to him, and he realizes where Helen is, and I guess he eventually said, I've had enough of this, and turns him in. And
after he took the money.
After he took the money,
of course.
Listen, it was his revenge. Yeah, I'll take your money and I'll turn you in.
It was revenge, but even in Alcatraz, John takes a photo of Helen and her sister, and then paints a portrait of them. And during that that process of painting that portrait, he's using that paint to paint the dummy heads.
Yep.
And then he's also using that same paint to do the back of the wall, for the vent cover. So I mean, he even in the escape process at the very end, undoubtedly Helen was still on his mind.
Yeah, and it's a good painting. I mean, it's a good rendering of
It's
her.
an awesome painting. He did an awesome job with it.
So it's like, I guess you wanted to make. I mean, obviously he's a talented guy, but it also solidifies the fact that why he had the paint. So if the guards are checking in, he goes, "Wow, this guy's really painting." Right. So they were not going to question what he's doing. Exactly.
And that's what is kind of so crazy about some of the items that they sent back. So my grandmother gets a letter from Warden Blackwell in like November of 1962, telling her that they're going to be shipping the items from her son's cells back to her. And then in like December of 62, she gets a box that contains the property of John and Clarence's personal items with an inventory card of what's in there. And, they send the paintings, which is amazing. It's like, okay, so even with Clarence, I think it's listed that they sent his paintbrush because he also painted a portrait of a rock scene with water crashing on it. But they send his paintbrush back. They don't send John's, but they send these random things like John. They send his glasses and a fountain pen and of course the 2 paintings. They don't send the letters. They don't send other items. And I used to always go, of all of the items that they probably should have kept in their possession would have been those paintings. It's like, I don't know why they thought, oh yeah, let's send these back and we'll send one of the paintbrushes back, but we're going to hang on to all the letters.
Although when we did Expedition Unknown, when we were in the, did I miss something?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, so when there was a scene in there where we were able to see some of the items that they actually, the FBI used as evidence, and so they still have those things, such as the paintbrushes, the little bottles of paint that they used.
Is that the prison?
Still evidence that they have that we were able to look at.
It's at
FBI.
It's at the archives.
Yeah, the archives in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the archives, I don't know if it was the FBI that gave it to them or if it was the marshals, but they gave them to the archives because they said, you'll do a better job of preserving these things than we would. If they,
they're evidence, why wouldn't you want to keep them?
We'll lose them.
Right. Something will happen. They're not going to be kept properly. So the archives still have them they're trying to do the best that they can because these things obviously were never meant to last, but they're still there. They still have them. We were able to look at them. So we saw the very things that they used in the escape.
All I can think of is that end of the scene of the Raiders of the Lost Ark where there's a crate somewhere in some building that somewhere that no one knows can't find it.
Well, and I spoke to both a long time ago, both Art and Michael Esslinger, who both of them told me that they saw the pouch along with the letters and the photos at the archives building early on. It's in the 2000s, early 2000s. Now the archives, claim, even when we had that lady on, that they have no knowledge of the pouch. They have no knowledge of the letters nor the photos. Somehow it just disappeared. So undoubtedly they didn't do such a hot job that the marshals thought they would do by keeping items. Somebody has gone in there and either taking them, and have them in their own personal credenza in their office, or they just have them and they refuse to show them to anyone anymore. Personal collection. Yep. Interesting. It would not shock me at all that if we ever got access to the FBI building in San Francisco, that we would probably find them there. Where is that building? What part of town?
It's in the Presidio.
The Presidio. Okay.
It's near the Presidio. It's close there.
And now I told you about how that I worked with a congressman when I lived in Georgia. Mm-hmm. And me and him, or he on my behalf, wrote the FBI in Washington. This was up under the Biden administration. And we actually got a response back from them. And they said, you need to contact the field office in San Francisco, gave us the address. I still have the letter. Gave us the address, who to contact. We both, me and the congressman, both, because they encouraged me to write them also. I wrote them, the congressman wrote them. To this day, and it's been almost 4 years, we have yet to hear anything from them. We have written them multiple times, and the congressman doesn't even, reach out to me anymore, but he used to reach out to me and, have you heard anything from them? I said, absolutely nothing. Yeah. I called them one time and said, okay, hey, I sent this letter in requesting, some information, and they said, oh, we don't have it. Can you fax it to us? I scanned it in. I faxed it to the number that they said, and they still refuse to this day to contact me. All I asked for was a simple phone call. Never responded, never wrote me a letter, never said, we can't do this. To this day, I've never heard a word from them. Listen, that's bureaucracy. Just when you're dealing with anything like that, like government records, like when I was walking around LA County Superior Court like 2 weeks ago, it was
You had one superior court some court sent me to downtown. Here's the room where all these files are. I went in there and the room was empty. It was empty. And then I go across the hall and I find two guys just sitting there basically doing nothing. I go, where can I get this? Oh, there's nothing here. You got to go to this website. And then like I go to the website, there's nothing there. It's just like this.
Then after his field trip 2 weeks later, we finally get an email. Oh yeah, they're destroyed.
They're destroyed. So
it is the craziest thing, when you if you don't at least get a correspondence back. I mean, at least tell me that you can't do it for me, or this is still an open investigation, or what. Just respond. But if you never respond, the only thing I can think of is that you don't want to talk about it.
Well, that, and also you got to understand, it's like dealing with the DMV. There's people there that go there, and they don't really go beyond anything that's in front of them unless they're told what to do. Unless someone comes down, it's like, like I said, you bang your head against the wall trying to get a straight answer. Sometimes you'll get someone who can actually help you. Mm-hmm. And if you plead your case properly, but you're talking to them face to face. But if it's over the phone or if it's an email, it's so easy to ignore. And it's like, why bother going the extra mile here? I just, this is an old case or whatever, or this person doesn't want to do anything, So I'm not surprised.
I feel about all of these letters that I've written. I've written hundreds of letters.
I know, but you got a response from the White House.
I did get one response.
You got a response from the White House. It's like
that I would write a letter, or I send an email, or I would do something, and I just felt like that at some point in time, some staffer is getting it, and it's like you said, they it's not my job. Yeah, I'll throw it away, and the person that you really want it to get to, it never makes it.
No, but you got a response from the White House, so it paid off, and and hopefully we can follow up on that, and when we're diving into our show and see if we can get some answers, get in front of somebody.
Yes, I believe if we do, the answers will come.
I agree.
So I want to bring up one more letter, at least on my end. I don't know if Ken has any more, but
no, I think we got time for one more.
Okay, then this is a good one to end on, because this one is, to me, it's the closest thing to a smoking gun in the letters that were written. Because as Ken pointed out several times, everything going in and out was monitored, looked at, scrutinized, so they couldn't state anything openly of what like, hey. Al, our plans for escape are going great. Hopefully we'll be out in 2 weeks. Yeah, they can't do that. So I think this one is the code that we've talked about. And this was written by Clarence, and this was dated on May 6, 1962. So this is just under or a little bit over a month away from the escape, because June was a month away. So they're hip deep in the plan. They've started the plan around December of 61. So now it's May of 62. So it's 6 months going into the actual execution of the plan. They're only a few weeks away from getting out. Everything has mostly been taken care of. And so Clarence, this is the last letter that either of them wrote to home, at least that Ken's mother kept. I can't imagine she would have thrown any of them away.
Yeah.
And so this is what he writes. He says, "Dear Mom, I received your letter and was sure glad to hear from you. Also to hear everyone at home was getting along all right. As for me and John, we are making out okay. We also received the birthday cards and Easter cards. I guess you have all visited Al by now. I just got a letter from him the other day, and he mentioned to you that you all were expected to be there on Saturday. I think that he may make parole back down there. So he's hopeful he's going to make parole in May of 62. He said that they asked him where he would like to go first if they did parole him, and he said Alabama. But I think that he would be better off to go back to Florida, where he'd be close to home. I know that I would have anyway. Maybe he will get back one way or another way. It would be something on the way to get him getting out. It would be something on the way to him getting out altogether. I don't know just how much chance there is of me and John getting any closer to home. But we have heard that they may close this place down and may move us to a new place in Illinois. It sure would be closer to visit. I don't know this for sure. We'll just have to wait and see."
Interesting.
Interesting.
So there was rumors about it closing down before they got out.
About Alcatraz closing down, and that they're going to get out of Alcatraz and go somewhere else. So, in my mind, the way I read that is, I think that's the code of saying that they're going to get out of Alcatraz soon, because they're just a few weeks away from breaking out.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
And it's a nice head fake too.
Right. Yeah.
They were aware of the fact that there was talk amongst the inmates that Alcatraz was going to be closing at some point. Now, it didn't happen for another year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there was the inmates knew there was talk of it, and I think they're just using that as a pretext about getting out. That we're gonna close this place down. We're getting out.
Busting out. That's crazy. This story's so crazy. The more I think about it,
It's just always going down the whole rabbit hole.
I'm telling you, this is a made for movie
story. Oh yeah, well, like we said, one step at a time. One step at a time. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for those letters. It's great.
Yes, thank you.
And like I said, I'm working on a couple other, hopefully, people that can speak to about Whitey personally,
and for Frank Morris.
And
we got
for
some
Frank
other
Morris,
people
we're trying to reach out
getting out the word out. So
yes. All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
All right.